The Minnesota Vikings went hard in the paint this offseason, adding interior offensive line help. They signed Jesse Davis from the Dolphins. They brought in Chris Reed from the Colts, as well as drafting Ed Ingram from LSU in the second round. Now, a name that hasn't really gotten the time of day either last year or this year has been 2021 third-round pick guard Wyatt Davis. Now, Davis, it's understandable, didn't get the time of day last year, and new regime, new coaching staff, generally they sort of eschew some of the previous regime's draft picks and players. And Wyatt Davis could be one of those guys who's unfortunately falling through the cracks because he hasn't cracked higher than the third team offensive line so far in training camp. We'll see if that changes once the pads come on today. But I don't know if Davis is going to be part of the plans. And I think as of right, barring a late training camp charge or barring a preseason run, maybe Wyatt Davis isn't going to make the team. And I think that if the Vikings do try and get him on the practice squad, I think that he will be scooped up in waivers. So the question's got to be asked. Should the Vikings gauge the trade market for Wyatt Davis? So let's talk about it. And Wyatt Davis at The Ohio State University was a big-time draft crush of mine. I absolutely loved him, and I wanted the Vikings to snag him no matter what. And hell, even when he was coming off that knee injury, Vikings in the first round, Vikings in the second round, maneuver, go get him, go get your guy, Wyatt Davis, no matter what. But he's only 23 years young, 6'4", 313, was the number one high school recruit guard in the class of 2017. A 2-year starter at The Ohio State University, beep, bop, 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 boop, 2-time All-American, including unanimous in 2020. In 2019, he became a full-time starter at right guard. He recorded an 82.6 PFF grade over 923 snaps, allowed only 15 pressures and 0 goose egg. D'Angelo Russell sacks helped keep Justin Fields clean over 2 years. Plus, in 2019, he paved the way for J.K. 2K Dobbins, a run for 2,000 yards. And he was a perfect outside zone guard. Ohio State runs a lot of outside zones, so you're thinking, 1 for 1. He was going to be that guy for the Vikings. But unfortunately, he had that knee injury in the 2020 national title game. And by the way, the whole Justin Fields needs protection, our whole thought process there. Once Wyatt Davis went out, Christian Barmore tore that game up. Bama versus Ohio State. So yes, protection is big for Justin Fields, and Ohio State didn't have it after Wyatt Davis went out. He fell to the third round, number 86 overall, drafted by the Vikings, and I absolutely loved him. But 0 offensive snaps as a rookie. He only had 28 special team snaps over 5 games last year when he actually was active. But I think he still has good potential. I think he's got good size. I think he's got great hands, great anchor, and great agility. But so far, it hasn't quite worked out. Like we mentioned, Wyatt Davis hasn't gotten above a third-team offensive line so far. He also missed a day of practice out of the 4 so far for the Vikings in 2022 training camp. And whenever there's been an opportunity, whether it's Jesse Davis missing Friday practice, then they elevated Chris Reed, and you're thinking, okay, Chris Reed at right guard 1, maybe Wyatt Davis could get in with the 2s. That didn't happen. Chris Reed and Ed Ingram were still the second-team guards. So I think that Wyatt Davis may be on the outside looking in. And like we said, if the Vikings cut him or waive him and try and get him onto the practice squad, I think another team is going to snap him up right now. So this is something that happens. And even beyond third-round picks. I mean, hell, sometimes this happens with first- and second-round picks right away. Previous regimes' draft picks, they don't really mesh with what the new regime wants to do. And even though I have a lot of regard for Wyatt Davis, I think that he still has a lot of potential. Maybe the Vikings and Chris Cooper and Wes Phillips and Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi, maybe they don't quite see it. I mean, Kwesi, being with the Browns in the 2021 draft, Ohio guy, Wyatt Davis, Ohio State, obviously he had an opinion on him. They obviously had a draft dossier on him. So maybe Wyatt Davis isn't their cup of tea. And it sort of is what it is. So the Vikings should absolutely gauge the trade market. Like, hey, calling up a team that has interior offensive line issues. Maybe their scouting department was very high on Wyatt Davis in the draft. Maybe they were ready to make him a late third-round pick or an early fourth-round pick, early day 3 selection. Who really knows? But, I mean, if Wyatt Davis is not going to make the team, which I'd say he's probably an underdog at this point unless something really gets going. Then, like we said, he's probably going to get scooped up on waivers if they try and put him on the practice squad. And if a team calls up with a 6th-round pick or conditional 5th, I think you got to listen because even though it absolutely sucks, I fully understand it. It absolutely sucks giving up on a kid who's so young, 23, so much potential, 2-time All-American, 1-time consensus All-American, and just giving him up for basically nothing. Basically nothing. But I don't know. They do have to keep options open. But like I said, it still is early, and maybe Wyatt Davis can start making some hay, especially once the pads come on. Today, there's going to be 11 padded practices for the Vikings at training camp, and maybe he can get something done in preseason. So maybe he really can turn this thing around, be late breaking, make a push to make the roster, because, again, I think that's the only way that he remains on the Vikings, because if they let him go, if they try and put him on the practice squad, he'll get scooped up. And also, if he's impressive in preseason, especially if they try and practice squad him, he'll get taken onto another team's roster. So, again, I have belief in Wyatt Davis no matter what, but it just may not be in the cards because Jesse Davis, I like. Chris Reed, I like. Ed Ingram, I think is going to be a good player as well. So we'll see. It may just be he may just be caught up in a numbers game and may just be caught up in regime change. But watch him go out and pan out that potential, become a multi-time All-Pro, HOF, Canton bound Wyatt Davis, just typical Vikings. It happens, man. But your thoughts are thoughts. Should the Vikings look into trading Wyatt Davis, no matter what? Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.